Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. I make videos about health, wellness, and sustainable living. If this is your first time here, welcome. I drop videos every Mondays about those topics. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to talk about lupus-related hair loss, what causes it, how frequent is it, what can your doctor do about it, what can you do about it, and what are some over-the-counter things that can be done about it. So this is going to be a part 2 of my previous video on lupus and hair loss. For those of you who saw that first video, you already know that unfortunately hair loss is a common part of, having lupus. It is in fact one of the earliest symptoms that people have, and unfortunately for a lot of women, whenever their hair starts falling out or their edges start thinning out, they assume that the reason for that is because they're stressed, or it's because they're not taking enough biotin or enough vitamins. They're attributed to other factors, not realizing that hair loss is actually one of the early symptoms of having lupus. So those of you who've been following my channel for a while, if you saw my my lupus story video, or if you saw the video I just made last week about lupus and hair loss, you know that I too experienced some hair loss, and that was, emotionally the hardest part of, dealing with lupus for me. Of course, there are lots of parts that are hard, but that part just hit me the hardest. I'm glad that I'm able to talk about it because I think it's important that we continue having these conversations. And more importantly, I want, women to, be encouraged to go get checked out if they're experiencing hair loss. I want more women to get diagnosed early so they can have access to the best treatment, as opposed to assuming that the hair loss is nothing to worry about, and then like the disease progresses. It progresses to the point where, they're doing really, really bad and have to be hospitalized for them to be diagnosed. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, that is what happens, is that they end up in a hospital, or they end up having kidney failure, which is when their disease gets diagnosed, when it would have been much better if it was caught earlier on when they were having some of the earlier symptoms. For those of you who are not familiar, lupus is an autoimmune disease that causes widespread inflammation to the body. And that inflammation can also show up with the skin, your scalp, your joints, and your organs. So when you're having inflammation of the skin, obviously it's going to affect also your scalp. And that is essentially what causes the issues with the hair loss. A lot of people also experience losing their eyebrows, their eyelashes, for men, their beard and their body hair. I've noticed loss of body hair on my legs, which is not really anything to complain about. I'm actually happy about that. Having less hair on my legs is not a problem, but that's definitely something that you would notice if you have lupus. A whopping 45% of people who are living with lupus experience hair loss. So that's almost half of the people. And as I mentioned before, it is a fairly common early symptom of lupus for a lot of people that unfortunately goes unnoticed until the disease gets much worse. There are 2 types of hair loss that a person with lupus can experience. The first one is called localized alopecia, and that one often happens around your edges. So if you notice that your edges are thinning and your hair is getting thin in the front, for some reason you feel like your hairline is receding, which is an indication that the hair that was there is thinning or it's falling out. That is what's called localized alopecia, and that often happens for a lot of people who have lupus. The second type of hair loss is called scarring alopecia. So scarring alopecia is a little bit more serious because those are actual scars, actual sores that are red, that are perfectly round and scabby. They're thick, they're scaly, but they do not itch and they do not hurt. So with scarring alopecia, you essentially develop skin lesions. So you start having sores on your scalp, which naturally causes the hair that was there to disappear. Those sores cause permanent damage to the hair follicles, and by destroying the hair follicles, it makes it impossible for the hair to grow back even when your lupus does get stabilized. And unfortunately, for a lot of people who are living with lupus, having those permanent bald patches on your scalp hair loss and hair thinning that is never ending. It's just a part of your new life and your new reality. It's not reversible, and there's absolutely, nothing you can do to make it come back. For non-scarring alopecia, though, there's a little bit more hope, because with that, once your lupus gets stabilized, after you've begun treatment, your hair can come back. And in my case, particularly with non-scarring alopecia, I've noticed that my hair started growing back once my lupus started doing better. Some lupus medications have also been linked to hair thinning. So even when your hair does grow back, it may not necessarily grow back with the same fullness that it had before. And that's kind of what I'm noticing in my case. I'm getting the length back, but I'm not getting the density or the thickness back. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know that lupus unfortunately causes your skin to be more sensitive to sunlight. So if you are someone who's living with lupus, it's really important that when you go out in the sun that you wear hats or any sort of covering to protect your skin as much as possible, especially if you're already experiencing hair loss. You definitely don't need any sunburn that could cause additional damage to your hair, your scalp whatsoever. It's important also to make healthy food choices, because a healthy diet is going to help, maintaining and fostering, healthy hair growth, as well as physical exercise, because it helps your blood travel through your body more efficiently. Vitamins and nutrients are also really important. And if you're eating a healthy diet, that should come naturally with it. But I know for a lot of people, they're not able to get all of those things from their diet, and they have to take it as an additional supplement. I always recommend that people talk to their doctors about supplements before taking them, especially if you have lupus or any kind of autoimmune condition. Over-the-counter hair loss products like Rogaine or any of those other products naturally is not going to work for lupus patients or people who are living with lupus, because the issue that's happening is autoimmune. It's happening at a genetic level, so there's nothing topical that you can put on your scalp that's going to make that not continue to happen on the inside. That's why those things are not effective for us. You got to be careful too with the dietary supplements. Those can sometimes interfere with how well the lupus medication is working. So with supplements, it's always a good idea for us to check with our doctors and make sure that what we're taking is appropriate. Talk to your doctor if you have concerns about hair thinning, or if you have concerns about vitamins or minerals being at the root of it. At least they can run labs and confirm that for you before you move ahead with that solution on your own. Other things that you can do is use gentle hair products. This is essentially why I moved over to an entirely plant-based lifestyle. It was because of the lupus. So I tend to be more interested in like plant-based products, vegan products. I don't do a lot of chemicals if I can avoid it, in my diet or on my body. Just, I just like a greener, like more healthier way of living to just help minimize any kind of triggers or inflammation in my body, in addition to what's already happening. Any chemical treatments are probably not the best thing to add to the hair when you're dealing with lupus. Flat irons, curling irons, hot combs, just any kind of harsh treatments that you normally would give to your hair that your hair can handle. When dealing with hair loss from lupus, those things are only going to make the problem worse. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just not the preferred thing that should be happening when one is suffering with lupus-driven hair loss. Another thing to be careful about too is braids. Those will literally like pull out your edges if they're done a little too tight, or if you keep them on too long. How snatched are your edges being snatched when the braids are being put in, because you don't want clumps and clumps of hair to be falling out when you're taking the braids out. And to be honest, the same goes for like buns. It doesn't have to be braids. If you wear your hair in a bun, if you're always snatching your buns really tight, over time your edges are gonna thin out. The goal here is to just like be very gentle with our hair, whether it's using gentle product, gentle styling, gentle combing, gentle detangling, just anything that you can do to help minimize further breakage and help preserve whatever hair you do have by avoiding harsh treatment or harsh processing or styling that can further damage your hair. For a lot of women, a simpler option is to wear wigs like me. It works for me, but I know it's not for everybody. One thing I like about wearing a wig is that it's fun to experiment with different styles, different looks, different colors. And in addition, it's something you can take off. It's low maintenance. More importantly, if you also deal with rhinoids like I do, it helps keep me warm, which is really my biggest reason for wearing it. For some women, wigs are not a good option and they prefer wearing a headscarf. just to kind of cover their hair all together. You may have noticed that's kind of what Nick Cannon was doing while he was going through his lupus treatment. He was wearing like a headscarf for a while there. You know, that is part of just how some people cope with that hair loss. And some people, you know, decide to just cut it all off and just wear their hair bald, you know, because they don't want to be bothered with it. It's like their way of embracing that this is just kind of a natural thing that they're experiencing as a result of their illness, and it is what it is, sort of thing. Those are pretty much the things that you can do if you're suffering with hair loss related to lupus. We basically covered everything, what causes it and what you can do about it. What do you think about this video? If you like this content, give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more lupus related content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for videos every Monday. If you'd like to shop any of my sustainable fashion pieces, you can check them out online at styledunder.com. And of course, follow me on social media at styledunder25. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take care of yourselves, okay? Au revoir!